Uprising, Chapter 30, Jane, page 277. Papa's taking us shopping. Papa's taking us shopping, Harriet chanted, bouncing up and down joyously in the elevator on the way to Mr. Blanc's office at the Triangle Factory. Hush, everybody knows that, Millicent said scornfully. She's just excited, Jane said mildly. She patted Harriet's shoulder, trying to calm her down. She gave Millicent and the elevator operator a sympathetic smile. Harriet's chanting was a bit maddening, but as always, it was hard to know the best way to handle the girls. Miss Milhouse would have scolded Harriet soundly. She would have taken it as her personal mission to stifle the little girl's exuberant personality, and she would have praised Millicent to the skies for her tidiness, her aversion to noise and mess, her ability to sit or stand still practically forever without squirming or exclaiming. Personally, Jane thought Millicent was in danger of becoming a priggish bore, and she worried that someday somebody would stifle Harriet's exuberance. Make it be like a stream, Bella had advised her when Jane asked for some help. You don't want to chop her off, bam. She slammed her right hand against her left palm, but make it go a good way. You mean I should try to channel her enthusiasm into positive outlets? Jane asked. After Jane explained what channel, enthusiasm, positive, and outlets meant, Bella grinned and nodded. Yes, exactly. You say what is in my heart for that. You say what is in my heart for that girl. Now, as the elevator door zoomed upward, Harriet began tugging on the elevator operator's jacket. Mister, you didn't know we were going shopping, did you? Papa's taking us as a treat because our mama went to Florida for the, what's it called? Social season. And she took the car with her on the train, so we had to take a taxi cab to get here. And the taxi cab's still waiting outside for us to come back. Except Mademoiselle Michaud's not going shopping with us, just Papa and Harriet, Jane said warningly. She's okay, the elevator operator said. You're the Blancs girls, right? The boss's daughters. Our Papa and Uncle Isaac own the whole factory, Millicent bragged. They employ more than 700 people. Millicent! Jane shot the girl a reproving look. Remember what I told you about bragging? She wanted to scold, but she'd always hated Miss Milhouse for correcting her in front of other people, so she vowed not to do that to Millicent or Harriet. It was just really tempting at times like this. First thing Monday morning, I need to have a little talk with both girls. The elevator was gathering speed. Harriet clutched Jane's hand. What if the elevator goes all the way through the roof? She asked. Silly. That would never happen, Millicent scoffed. Why not? Because it wouldn't be proper, Millicent said. She lowered her voice as if that would keep the elevator operator from hearing. If we went through the roof, the people below us would see up our skirts. The elevator operator's face turned red. He was trying so hard not to laugh. Jane sighed. There are scientific reasons the elevator will never go through the roof, she said, because of how the elevator's made, how it works. How does it work? Harriet asked. Oops, Jane had been afraid she'd asked that. Somehow elevator machines had not been in the curriculum at Jane's finishing school. Next week, we can go to the bookstore and find a book that explains it all, she said. Or maybe you can find one with your papa. The elevator runs on a cable, the operator said. The cable goes up to the gears, and those are on the roof. Maybe sometime you can ask your papa to show you the gearbox. But if you want to go to the roof, you have to use the Green Street stairs. That's the only way to get there. Thank you, Jane said, smiling gratefully at the operator. He was a pimply boy, maybe a little younger than her. A year ago, he would have been completely invisible to her, but now she wondered about his life. Which country had he come from? Did he bring his family with him, or was he all alone? Was he supporting a widowed mother and a younger brother or a sister or two in his salary as an elevator operator? Did Mr. Blanc and Mr. Harris pay him more or less than they paid their sewing machine operators? 10th floor, the operator announced, bringing the elevator to a halt and sweeping open the barred door. Where your papa and the boss works. He had the slightest hint of mockery in his voice, just enough for Jane to hear. He even gave her a conspiratorial wink, which was much too forward, but somehow Jane didn't mind. She winked back and stepped out onto the polished wood floor of the spacious reception area. Miss Mary, Harriet cried, running over to one of the desks. Oh, sweetie, Miss Mary's busy right now, she said the short, frazzled-looking woman behind the desk. The switchboard operator didn't come in today, so Miss Mary has to do all the typing and cannot connect every call that comes in. The 8th floor can't even call the 9th floor without my help. Harriet inspected the telephone switchboard behind the woman's desk, the wires hanging slack. So if you plug in this wire here, then... Oh, sweetie, don't touch, Miss Mary said, gently pushing Harriet's hand away. I really don't have time. I'll explain it to you some other day. She looked up at Jane. You're the governess, right? You can just take them into Mr. Blanc's office and then go tell them they're here. Where's Mr. Blanc? Jane asked. Oh, he was just down on the 9th floor. No, wait, back in the storeroom. I'm sorry, I looked for him myself, but... The harried secretary gestured at the paper strewn across her desk, the bill poking out from her typewriter. A contraption beside the typewriter buzzed, and Miss Mary looked over at it expectantly. What's that? Oh, it's the new telegraph, Miss Mary said. The latest in business machinery. It's how it's advertised. Looks like their message coming through the 8th floor. They write something on a pad of paper downstairs, and this pen is supposed to write the same thing on this pad right here. Like magic, Harriet breathed. The pen didn't move. It'd be magic if it ever worked right, Miss Mary snorted. Probably isn't anything anyhow, just the girls downstairs playing with it on their way out the door. Miss Mary turned her back to the typing, and Jane shooed the girls toward Mr. Blanc's office. I want to see the showroom, Harriet said, skipping down the hall. Mademoiselle Machard, you'll love it. You can see all the latest fashions before Paris. That's because even Paris doesn't know as much about fashion as our papa, Millicent said, agreeing with her younger sister for once. Some other time, Jane said. Miss Mary said to wait in his office, remember? They turned in the doorway, but the sign on the door said Isaac Harris, not Max Blanc. Uncle Isaac, Harriet called. A man behind the desk waved, but there was another man with him, a dapper-looking gentleman holding a sample of delicate embroidery. Jane flashed an apologetic look at Mr. Harris and pulled the girls away. Look, you can go into the pressing department from here, Harriet said, pointing past the break wall into a vast open space where rows and rows of weary-looking workers stood over ironing boards. Each one of the irons was connected to the ceiling by an odd array of tubes. Is Papa afraid those workers are going to steal his irons? Harriet asked. Is that why the irons are all tied up? Jane didn't have the slightest idea, so she was glad that Millicent answered first. No, silly. The gas comes down those tubes and heats up the irons, Millicent said. Papa says we must never, ever go in there, because one of those irons could blister our skin in an instant. And does he care about all those workers operating the irons? Jane wondered bitterly. Some of them look no older than Millicent. Quick now, she told the girls, into the office. Wait right there. She was infected suddenly with some of Miss Mary's franticness, or maybe she was just tired of hearing the admiring tone of the girls' voices every time they mentioned their papa, or maybe it was the sight of the haggard workers hunched over their irons, girls who looked entirely too young, who would probably look entirely too old just after a year or two on the job. Regardless, Jane was ready to be done working for the day, ready to be out in the fresh air, arm in arm with Bella and Yetta. She was pretty sure that she and Bella had finally convinced Yetta to go with them to visit Rahel and Rahel's new baby. It would probably be a touching reunion. Yes, Yetta will be so much happier. She'll just forgive her sister for getting married, Jane thought. My father and I, on the other hand, she hadn't forgotten her promise to Mr. Corrigan to write her father a letter. She'd written him many, many letters, actually. She'd just torn them all up. What is there to say? Jane pulled the door shut on Millicent and Harriet, catching barely a glimpse of Mr. Blanc's imposing mahogany desk, of the lovely arched windows behind the desk. Harriet was scrambling into the huge leather chair. Harriet, a young lady would never put her feet up on the desk, she heard Millicent cry out in scandalized horror. Jane decided to let Millicent wage that battle on her own. Secretly, she was thinking, oh, Harriet, maybe you should just go on being that kind of girl who puts her feet on desks. Better than that, hiding under them. She scurried down the hall back to the double elevated doors. She decided to look for Mr. Blanc on the 9th floor first. She knew that was where Bella worked, and it'd be good if she could warn Bella that she'd be a few minutes late going out onto the street, especially if it took her a long time to find Mr. Blanc. Passing Miss Mary's desk, Jane was surprised to notice the woman had vanished, leaving the telephone receiver hanging off the hook. That's odd. She seemed like such a conscientious sort. A different elevator operator came up this time, a swarthily handsome Italian man. If Bella's precious Pietro looks anything like that, no wonder she can't forget him, Jane thought. Then she had to hide her face so he didn't see her giggling at her own wickedness. The elevator buzzed annoyingly, again and again and again. 8th floor is going crazy, the elevator operator growled. He scowled at the panel of lights that kept flashing at him as he shut the door behind Jane and the elevator began its descent. Hold on a minute, I'm coming. They probably all got spring fever, Jane said, and it's Saturday. Yeah, the operator grumbled, letting out on the 9th floor, but they gotta take it out, but they don't gotta take it out on me. The 9th floor was not what Jane expected. After the cleanliness and elegance of the 10th floor, she wasn't prepared for this dim, dirty space with tables and machines and the other girls packed in so tightly. The room was huge, but the tables stretched from one side of the building to the other. By the windows, there wasn't even space to walk around the tables, and the shirtwaist parts were piled everywhere, mountains of fabric by each machine. No wonder Bella felt so overwhelmed coming here from her tiny little village in Italy, Jane thought. Jane herself felt a little overwhelmed. Excuse me, do you know where I can find Mr. Blanc or Bella Rossetti? She asked the girl at the nearest sewing machine. The girl looked up at her blankly and she said something that might have been, I don't speak English, in some other language. Just then, a bell sounded, and the machine stopped. Hundreds of girls sprang up from their machines all at once. It spooked Jane a little. The darkness of the room and the foreign jabbering of the girls moving like machines themselves. But then, one of the girls stepping out in the cloakroom began to sing. Every little movement has a meaning of its own. One of the popular songs that you would have heard everywhere. Nowadays, some of the other girls joined in, and they all seemed so lighthearted suddenly. Saturday afternoon, and the sun was shining. The work was over. These girls looked happier than anyone Jane had ever seen at a formal ball. Then, 2 tables away, Jane spotted Bella heading down the aisle between the tables and laughing and talking to the girls around her. Jane, what are you doing here? Bella shouted over to her. Looking for you and Mr. Blanc. Jane said. Well, we wouldn't be together, Bella said back merrily. Jane worked her way through the crowd toward her friend. She explained about Millicent and Harriet and the shopping and how long it would take her to get down to the sidewalk. Then Bella said, oh, wait, you have to meet my friends. This is Annie and Dora and Josie and Essie and Ida. And here, she patted her back down the aisle between the tables. This is my boss, Signor Carlotti. This is my friend, Jane Wellington. Signor Carlotti, and she knows proper Italian and proper English. Hello, Signor Carlotti said. I'm a factory inspector, Jane said, suddenly inspired to lie. If I were to interview the girls in this factory, would they tell me you treat them with respect? Are you fair to all your workers? At the first word out of her mouth, Signor Carlotti's face changed. First to awe at her upper-class accent, then to fear. Yes, of course, Signor Carlotti explained. It was all Jane and Bella could do not to double over giggling as they walked away. Maybe he really will change how he treats you Monday morning, Jane whispered. Oh, I don't think so, Bella asked wistfully. Oh, do you think so? Bella asked wistfully. Across the room, strangely, Jane heard Yetta's voice now. She couldn't make out the words, but Yetta seemed to be calling out in great excitement. From the midst of the crowd of the girls getting ready to leave, maybe she was talking them into another strike. Maybe this one would work. Maybe Yetta would get her dearest wish. Doesn't Yetta work on the 8th floor? Jean asked. But before Bella could answer, screams suddenly came from the back of the room. Screams and a great burst of light. The end of chapter 30.